Well, good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining our Monterey Peninsula Election Forum Part 2 on housing. I'm Kate Roberts, the President and CEO of the Monterey Bay Economic Partnership. And this is the sixth and final installment of our series of election forums that we have held across the region. As many of you already know, the Monterey Bay Economic Partnership is a nonprofit member-supported organization that works across our tri-county region. Our work focuses on specific initiative areas that are the underpinning for a thriving economy: affordable housing, a strong workforce pipeline, ubiquitous broadband access, and climate change mitigation, which includes transportation improvements. Tonight's forum is part of our advocacy and education work to help increase the supply of housing of all types and income levels across the region. MBEP has been doing these nonpartisan election forums for the last 4 years, and everyone is welcome. The hope is that the issues are discussed in a way that brings clarity to public policy. The mission of MBEP is to improve the economic health and quality of life in the region, and these types of forums contribute to that mission. I'd like to thank MBEP's housing team for working with officials and staff in tonight's represented jurisdictions to help meet our region's housing goals. Some examples include providing technical support on the recently approved campus town that will bring nearly 1,500 housing units to the city of Seaside, engagement in updating the housing element for the city of Delray Oaks, support for approval of the Dunes Phase 2 housing development in Marina, and participation in United Way's ADU advisory group, which promotes the development of streamlined and low-barrier ADU policies and homeowner education on the peninsula and throughout Monterey County. We have designed the forum to focus on key housing issues that need thoughtful leadership from our elected officials. Our goal is to provide this platform for candidates during this election and to help voters make an informed decision. Many thanks to Katie Castagna and the United Way of Monterey County for joining us tonight as co-host. Now I'd like to introduce Emmy Ham, one of MBEP's Stellar Housing Program Associates, and hand the program over to her. Emmy, over to you.
Thank you so much, Kate. I appreciate that. Good evening, everyone, and welcome again to part 2 of our Monterey Peninsula Election Forum, where we will be discussing key housing issues with candidates from the jurisdiction of Monterey County District 4, Delray Oaks, Marina, and Seaside. Again, my name is Emily Ham, and I'm a member of the Monterey Bay Economic Partnership's housing team, and I'm so happy to introduce my colleague and co-host for the evening, Katie Castagna, President and CEO of United Way, Monterey County. So Katie, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And we are so happy to have you.
Thank you so much, Emily. I'm really happy to be here as well. United Way Monterey County is an independent nonprofit organization focused on improving lives in Monterey County. And we're focused on fighting for financial stability for families and the ability for everybody to thrive. Why housing? I keep asking myself, how did I get into this housing conversation? What we know is that one of the biggest barrier to financial self-sufficiency for people in our community is related to housing costs. We know that half of our population rents their homes, and of those, 56% are paying more than 30% of their income toward their rent. So roughly a quarter of our population is paying an inordinate amount of their income toward housing costs. The trends in recent years are such that wages have not risen as quickly as housing costs. And so that's really a recipe for disaster. We're really excited to have the opportunity to focus on this huge issue in collaboration with so many organizations. And we've been working really closely with MBEP to address housing in a number of ways. We know just on an individual level that housing is a challenge based on one of our key services, our 211 information and referral service. We're running over 1,000 calls a month, and the top need people express is related to their rent and needing help either with rental assistance or finding affordable housing. One of the other services that we've been involved in is, as Kate mentioned, the accessory dwelling unit initiative. And that's one housing strategy to try and promote more housing supply through an infill strategy of promoting and making it easier for homeowners to add granny units on their own properties. And we had a recent virtual conference that was very well attended. We had hundreds of people participate. So we know that there's a lot of interest and not only concern about the problem, but a lot of people are gathering around, engaged in finding solutions. So a challenge such as this, as far as the size of our housing crisis, really requires focus and collaboration for all of us. And I'm just really excited to have the opportunity tonight for us all to gather and learn and have conversation with our leaders and people that are interested in taking leadership position and really putting a laser beam on the particular issues and starting to dialogue about how we might best address them. So thank you so much, and I look forward to the discussion tonight.
Great, thanks, Katie. And speaking of leadership, I just want to thank you for the role that you play at United Way Monterey County, and especially for being a role model for women in leadership right now. It's so important, and you are definitely one of my role models in Monterey County, and I am really excited to host this forum with you tonight. So thank you so much for being here. And with that, should we get started?
Let's go.
Okay, great. So I will just give a brief rundown of the agenda. So you've heard from our president, Kate Roberts, and now your moderators. And we are going to start things off with Monterey County District 4 candidates. Then we are going to move on to candidates from the city of Delray Oaks, Marina, and Seaside. Seaside is our largest group, so that will be the longest part of the forum. So we saved the best for last, the longest for last. So if you need to tune out or tune back in, these are approximate times, and feel free to do so. So let's go ahead and get started. So each candidate will have 2 minutes to present their housing agendas. They will get a notification at 30 seconds and another notification at time. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into Monterey County District 4. And I would like to just present who is on the ballot this season. We have Wendy Root Askew and Steve McShane. And we will start with Wendy. So Wendy, the floor is yours whenever you're ready.
Fabulous. Hi. So for my quick introduction, my name is Wendy Root Askew. I live here in Marina, where I'm raising my 8-year-old son with my husband and my mom and our puppy dog. I serve on the Monterey Peninsula Unified School District Board of Education as a trustee. And for the past 10 years, I've been working with Monterey County Supervisor Jane Parker on issues of housing, social services, public safety, and health in the County of Monterey Board of Supervisors office. I've been, as it says on the slide, a founding member of the Monterey Peninsula Regional Housing Coalition, which is where we've been able to use this concept of the power of 3 to actually move projects forward that benefit our housing needs on the peninsula. And the power of 3, recognizing that you need elected officials to provide leadership, but you also need public will and staff who are prepared and capable to do the work that needs to be done. So as we build our collective will, public, elected, and with staff, to move forward the housing that's so desperately needed on the Monterey Peninsula, we've actually been able to make some small progress and with opportunity to do quite a bit more. I've been focused primarily in the past 6 months on COVID response with the County of Monterey, which also includes quite a bit of emergency housing provisions for people who need to quarantine away from their overcrowded housing conditions. Working with our school board, we've also identified that 1 in 10 of our students is homeless, and that we have a collective commitment to identify and to provide additional housing as a school district.
Great, thank you so much, Wendy, and apologies for the mispronunciation of your last name. I get it wrong every time. I'll get it right one of these days, I promise you. So thank you, Wendy, we appreciate it. Next up, we will welcome Steve McShane. Steve, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Emmy. My name is Steve McShane. I'm a city councilman for the city of Salinas. I chair our Tri-County Monterey Bay Area Resources District, the Association of Monterey Bay Area Governments. I serve on the Marine Sanctuary Board and have a passion for this subject. Some of my experience in housing is listed there. I spent 3 years on the County Housing Advisory Committee, along with 3 years as a planning commissioner, serving 1 year as chair. We've done a lot in Salinas, and Salinas being the largest city in the Central Coast region has a lot of complex challenges. And I'm proud to say I've brought a lot of low-income housing units to Salinas, both through private channels and public channels. The future growth area of the city is particularly exciting. We've engaged modern urban planning principles that will bring in twice the density of developments its size in previous times in the history of Salinas. Walkable, green space, transit-oriented, very exciting. My main goals as a candidate for supervisor, first, I want to work on permit reform. This is an area of passion that I engaged in as a council member and will do so as a supervisor. 280 plus days to get a permit is way too long. Over the counter, online, and streamlining is needed. I think like my opponent, there's tremendous enthusiasm for transit-oriented, city-centered growth. We were talking before this session about how it's nice to not have spent as much time in cars as we normally would. Very supportive of ADUs and seeking fee relief on that topic, and then incentivizing employer and large employer development for employees. So look forward to this discussion and want to thank MBEP.
Great, thank you so much, Steve. I'd like to welcome Katie back onto the screen so that we can take a look at the questions that we posed to District 4 candidates ahead of the forum. So we asked them 7 questions each, and we'll just briefly go through them and give a little bit of context for each one. So if we could see the questions. The first one is, would you support a bond measure similar to Santa Cruz County's Measure H in Monterey County in the future? And for those of you who aren't familiar with Measure H, this is something that we're actually seeing in various counties throughout California right now. It is a bond measure that essentially divvies up funds between local governments in order to support new affordable housing, loans for first-time homebuyers, and support unhoused population. And it really did have broad institutional support and approval in Santa Cruz, but it fell short of the 2/3 majority that was needed in order for it to pass. But it is being considered, and it's still a top of mind strategy for a lot of counties right now. So we included that as a question. We also asked if the candidates would support the elimination of in lieu fees to ensure that inclusionary units are built. We asked, will you prioritize approving higher density affordable housing, especially in high opportunity areas near job centers and public transportation, such as commercial areas in Carmel Valley or Fremont Corridor? Would you support allowing for grandfathering of existing ADU units as long as they meet current health and safety requirements? Would you support streamlining the process for the development of affordable low-income housing that meets state and county objectives by exempting them from the full public review process outlined in CEQA? Would you support the enactment of a local eviction moratorium that goes beyond current state protections and restricts rent increases during the declared state of emergency? And then finally, do you support Proposition 15, which is known as Schools and Communities First? And we'll provide a little bit of context around these questions as we move through them in this forum. But we do want to get back to the candidates and see how they responded to these questions. So Katie, what do you think about their responses and what stands out to you from the matrix?
Well, first I just want to comment, what I love about this format is that there's homework. So these candidates have done their homework, and this is a really crisp way for us to see at least the initial thinking around these really important issues. So what strikes me, of course, is that we have a lot of alignment here. In fact, on all of these items except for Prop 15. And again, Prop 15 is the Schools and Community First initiative, also known as the split roll, or it's basically an adjustment to the original Prop 13, and it readjusts taxation on commercial properties and maintains the homeowner taxation status quo with Prop 13. But anyway, so I'm seeing that's our big distinction, and looking forward to hearing some, I guess, some added commentary from our candidates.
Yeah, definitely. So MBEP is actually currently reviewing whether or not to take a position on Proposition 15. But I just want to note that the reason we did include that question is because it would have pretty significant impact on local revenue streams by instating a fair market value assessment tax on commercial properties that are valued over $3 million. So we can get into more information on that, and we would invite our two District 4 candidates to maybe elaborate on what they like or don't like about that proposition. But let's go ahead and give them the floor. They will have 3 minutes this time to address either Measure H, Proposition 15, or any of the other questions that we pose to them. And then they will also give closing remarks. So without further ado, Wendy, we will pass the mic back to you, and you have 3 minutes.
Awesome. I've got a long list of bullets here, so I'm going to work my way through and hope I get as far as I want. So in terms of Measure H, I want to make a connection to the work that we've done at Monterey Peninsula Unified School District. Rather than just simply acknowledging that we have a teacher housing crisis and a number of students who are homeless, I really took the initiative and led on identifying 5 district properties that were surplus. In partnership with United Way, we identified those properties, identified where we had water, and identified opportunities to build upwards of 300 permanently affordable units for our teachers, our special ed aides, our janitors, and possibly for our homeless families as well. That bond measure polled at 80% support and had the potential to be put on our ballot for November. We didn't have the votes, but we had all support from all 5 of our mayors and many others in the community. So I look forward to having that move forward, which would result in potentially 300 units through bond funding. In terms of Prop 15, I do want to reiterate my strong and consistent support for Prop 15. It's only fair. It will generate incredibly needed revenue for local schools and local governments so that we have resources to ensure that our first responders have the funds that they need, to ensure that we have funds that we can invest in housing. Agriculture and small businesses are exempt from the Prop 15 endorsement, or the Prop 15 tax reassessments, and I'm proud to be a strong champion of Prop 15. A couple things that I think I want to highlight. I think it's really important that the peninsula does its fair share in terms of housing. District 4 includes 5 cities, so the ability of the supervisor to work hand in hand in trusted partnership with the elected leaders from all 5 of those cities is absolutely essential to achieve the type of infill development that closes the job housing gaps that we see cause so much traffic and housing, contribute to the housing crisis. I'm proud to have the endorsement of local electeds, of Labor Council, of our building and construction trades who have seen me work to build coalitions of folks to get these projects moved forward. The redevelopment of Fort Ord and the elimination of blight has to be a priority as we look at housing opportunities on the Monterey Peninsula. In terms of funding to achieve the housing that we need to get to, we know we need more money in the system. And so things like Prop 15, things like the Monterey County Housing Trust with county dollars, things like the MPUSD housing bond, which would have generated $60 million, things like the Central California Alliance for Health capital grants for housing are important to help us get the money that we need to bring in more housing. In terms of building the political will that we need to get these things done, I'm really proud to be a champion of the Monterey County. Oh, am I up? All right, I'll end there, and I could go on and on. But thank you for the opportunity to talk about housing. It is absolutely critical. It's a critical issue, and it's something that I intend to prioritize.
Thank you so much, Wendy. We really appreciate you being here, and good luck with the rest of the campaign. Now we'll turn it back over to Steve McShane. Steve, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Emmy. I really want to start by focusing on Measure H. We need more capital that'll provide opportunity for low-income and homeless solutions when it comes to housing. I very much look forward to something that can be done in the same sort of light that was put forward in Santa Cruz County. I'm proud as a 10-year council member to have pioneered, even as recent, some creative ways to go about down payment assistance, housing solutions, including participation in MBEP's initiative to build a Monterey Bay housing trust. Recently, the city council also funded additional monies for a partnership with the County of Monterey for similar tools. Clearly, local government has all the levers at its disposal to bring about more housing that we want. And there's ripe opportunity for reform, and it just hasn't happened. So I'm ready to tackle that as one of my #1 goals. And as referenced in my slide, elimination of in lieu fees falls right in line with that. We've got to incentivize the type of units that we need: smaller units, affordable units, and building up. No doubt about that. I also thought that I would mention, as it relates to ADUs, there's tremendous opportunity there as well. And grandfathering of ADUs is something that our city is certainly leading on, and I think other cities are catching on. That the large parcel with a small house that may have been there for 40 or 50 years, or even been part of a tract development many years ago, is just not the way we're going to exist in city planning as it relates to the future. As it relates to Prop 15, I just don't think an economic recession and a pandemic is the right time to raise taxes. Everybody needs to pay their fair share. I get it. There's no doubt that there's a need for funding for schools. There's a need for funding for local government. I mean, I've lived it twice, having survived 2 dramatic recessions as a local elected official for 10 years, but now's not the time. A few things that I'll highlight. There is nobody from small business on the County Board of Supervisors in Monterey County right now. And as a small business owner of 15 years that's lived through thick and thin, I think I provide a unique perspective. I also have a really good track record for solutions when it relates to homelessness. I've been involved in the construction of the shelter in Seaside as a board member for Community Human Services, and welcome working with MBET and the colleagues that are on this call and this Zoom opportunity today. So thank you very much, and I look forward to the rest of the time today.
Thank you so much, Steve, and best of luck to you as well in the rest of your campaign. So now I'll hand it over to you, Katie, so you can facilitate the Delray Oaks candidates.
Okay, thank you. And I too would like to thank Steve and Wendy very much for their time tonight. Moving on to the city of Delray Oaks, we're going to talk to our candidates there. And once again, each candidate will have 2 minutes to present their housing agendas. We're going to start with the mayoral candidate and incumbent, Allison Kerr. Allison, you have 2 minutes.
Can you see me okay? Can you hear me?
Yep, we've got you, Allison.
Okay, great, thank you. Well, I just want to thank you for hosting this forum and inviting those of us running for office in Delray Oaks. We are a small town, and I'm just thrilled that we're able to be here and actually be a member of MBEP. It was one of the first things I wanted to do when I won election 2 years ago. So I am Allison Kerr. I am running for re-election for mayor of Delray Oaks. I have been mayor for the last 2 years, and I'm looking forward to the next. My slide is, because our city is so small, I'd like to walk you through it. So firstly, there are 4 green items that are for reference. On the uppermost left corner is Work Memorial Park, which is right behind Safeway. And this is a wetland, so we won't be doing any development on that. The next is the Frog Pond is in the middle of the map. The dark green is what you may be familiar with, but you may not know that the Monterey Regional Parks also has the piece of property in lighter green across General Gym right there. The Oaks condominiums is so you know where you are kind of in the city. And then the bottom right of the map is an estimate of where the city sold a portion of our four-doored parcel that will be used for a high-end RV park. So I want to go ahead and address the white areas as I address each bullet point. So a housing element. We have good news and bad news. The bad news is we need to finalize the second housing element so we are fully compliant. The good news is we need to finish a housing element so we are fully compliant. We are in a position to be able to solidify the ideas, many of which are outlined in the MBEP housing white paper, such as scale fees by square foot, enhance bonus densities, reducing commercial space requirements, and pro-ADU policies, which lead me to the next bullet point. We need to piggyback on the great work that Seaside and the other local cities have already been doing with developing a user-friendly guide of guidelines and plans. Not only do ADUs and junior ADUs help our affordable housing stock, but they also help our residents that may need the additional income.
Thank you, Allison. I know there's more to say, and I'm going to stop you there. I appreciate the map. That was fun. So now we're going to move on to city council candidates. We have 2 with us tonight, and I don't know if we have their names listed on the screen, but I have a script, so I'm going to first introduce Gary Krieger. Gary, you have 2 minutes now. There he is.
Yeah, hello. Gary Krieger, and I have been living in Delray Oaks about 16 years. I retired from the Navy after 25 years in 2007 and been teaching middle school math ever since. And in the Navy, I flew E-2C Hawkeyes off the carrier. FEMA knows what those are. Much like that, Delray Oaks is much like the E-2. The advantage is we're small, so we're nimble. The disadvantage is we're small, and so we have fewer resources. And if you saw from the map, it's going to be, we're a little bit limited, especially for space. So that's something we have to deal with. The most immediate need for us is probably solving water. I mean, that's a need for everybody. We don't have a lot of flexibility with moving credits around. Like some cities might have a little bit of flexibility. We need to get that expansion of the pure water Monterey in there so we can start to grow our city sustainably. And ADUs, as everyone's hitting on, we need to align. We're going to have to work on that because our ADU ordinance is out of date, not in alignment with the state. We need to fix that so it's we can reduce the friction, make it more efficient, and there's a lot we could do with that. And we do have some space for that. Okay. At the same time, we got to be a little thinking of the box. We do have a couple small areas. Mayor Kerr had them on the map there. for some infill, micro development type things, with nothing like what they were able to do on Garden Road, but our needs are a lot less. So we can make a dent in there, which is going to have to be a little creative. And we'll talk more in a minute, but the Fort Ord obviously is our big blank slate, and we want to be really smart about that. Currently, I'm a little concerned about it because it's sort of traditional thinking, and we need to pull back and actually take a fresh look at that. We don't need another Delray Oaks Highlands. We need some kind of high mixed use, high density mixed use community out there. All right, thank you.
Katie, yep, there you go.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. Thank you so much, Gary. We wanted to go back and review the list of all the candidates. As you've heard, we had Allison Kerr here with us tonight. We have heard from Gary Krieger for council. And our next guest is Kim Shirley. Kim, you have 2 minutes now. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for having me here tonight. It's so nice to be able to talk about affordable housing. And for Delray Oaks, we have not built any housing for decades. And so I feel like we really need to approach this in a citywide thinking. We need a lot of education and to help our community with buy-in with affordable housing. And so specifically with Fort Ord, we're gonna really need to do a lot of public visioning to see how we can integrate that portion into our city and develop it wisely. And do it before we actually contact a developer. So I really want our residents to be educated and have them be able to explore ideas. And when we talk about housing, I want it to be well integrated. So I'm really looking at potential infill within our city, and then also be equity focused, really making sure that we're looking at all those different levels of types of housing. And then as we look at housing, I really want the lens we look through to be climate change focused. So I want to make sure we are having the lowest carbon footprint we can with all of our development. So we really need to update our ordinances in Delray Oaks, and we need to support affordable housing by removing those constraints, such as reducing costs, making permits a lot easier to achieve. And then as Gary mentioned, we need to really update our ADU ordinance. We are out of compliance. And so our Planning Commission is supposed to be addressing that soon, hopefully, and we'd like to see that done. We also want to increase our inclusionary housing ordinance. Right now it's 15%. I'd like to see that at 20%. I'd like to see work with nonprofits to reevaluate our smaller parcels within our city so we can use that for workforce or senior housing. And then ultimately, I just like to get creative. I want to match up young people. We have a lot of seniors in our city. See if we can match people up and get housing done that way. Work with our businesses in the light industrial area. Maybe they can also help with workforce housing, and then evaluate our water situation. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Kim, and thank you to all of our candidates. You were very good with your time. So now we're going to look at the questionnaire that we had posed to the candidates specifically for Delray Oaks. And I'm going to read through the questions, and then we'll get to see their responses. So would you support the development of a master plan community, including high density, affordable rental housing on Fort Ord? When new water supplies become available, would you support prioritizing it for the development of affordable housing? Would you support not including an in lieu fee option in the city's inclusionary housing ordinance to ensure that inclusionary housing units are built? Would you support the development of a local ordinance that provides even more flexibility than the state policy currently mandates, such as allowing 2 ADUs on one property? Would you be in support of MPUSD pursuing a similar measure on the ballot in the future? I believe that is a similar measure. I don't know if we meant related to workforce housing. Yes, okay. Thank you. Would you support the enactment of a local eviction moratorium that goes beyond current state protections and restricts rent increases during the declared state of emergency? And finally, do you support Proposition 15, known as Schools and Communities First? And so now we get to look at the responses from our candidates and take a look at where we have some alignment and where there's some differences.
Yeah, so
Does anything jump out at you, Emily?
Yeah, I'm seeing only a couple no's. Otherwise, there's kind of a sea of yeses. So I'm noting a no, a difference of opinion on perhaps going above and beyond the requirements of the state ADU ordinance. And then I'm also seeing a difference of opinion on a potential future MPUSD housing bond. So perhaps the candidates can touch on those issues, but really quickly, I just wanted to note in regards to the ADU ordinance, as you know very well, Katie, since United Way does so much work on ADUs, the state just fairly recently enacted a statewide ordinance that's really the lowest barrier ordinance that we've seen so far, though local jurisdictions can still go above and beyond those requirements if they choose to do so by enacting a local ordinance. So perhaps the candidates can touch a little bit on that and maybe on the MPUSD housing bond. Those would be of interest to me.
Okay, so now each candidate will have 3 minutes to elaborate on their responses. And Allison, you're up first.
All right, thank you. So let's address what Katie wants me to address first. The housing bond, yes, I was one of the mayors that, can you hear me?
Yep, we've got you.
Okay, sorry, I had a dialogue box. So the housing, MPUSD housing bond measure, I did support, or I signed a letter of support for that. And of course, I think our teachers, we lose, 100 teachers a year. And I'm sure many of those are because of the cost of living. So yes, I would definitely support that. As far as the local ADU ordinance, my only hesitancy was to see, because our current one is out of compliance, I want to bring us up to speed and to see. There are a couple of properties that are significantly larger than the rest of our lots in town, and I would definitely encourage additional units on those parcels. So I want to go back a little bit to infill before I hit Fort Ord and water, which of course goes together. So back at the map, there was 17-acre right across from the Oaks condominium, and it too has a wetland, and which feeds our frog pond. So I'd like to take that out of the inventory. So what that leaves us is 2 small parcels. One is called the Rosita Triangle, and the other is a former RV storage park. Both are very small pieces of property, but they would be conducive to smaller multifamily housing, possibly multi-use projects. And what's cool about these 2 parcels is they're both on the path of the proposed 4-tag rec trail, as well as MST bus routes. So they would have access to a lot of alternative transportation options. The other thing is we also have a business owner, Kim mentioned it briefly, but we have one business owner that would like to rebuild their facility and add in housing for their workers. So I would love to see more of that with our business as well. So that ties into water. We have not had water for a very long time, and we also haven't developed for a very long time. So we are eager to see the expansion of Pure Water Monterey happen, so we can have more water to be able to do with as the community sees fit. Now we talk about Fort Ord. So we currently have approximately 650 houses, and with no new stock since the 1970s when the Oaks condominiums were built. So you can see on that map, the Fort Ord parcel essentially doubles the size of this city. But there are complexities with the property. Out of the 300 plus acres we were gifted, approximately 100 have been approved for housing.
Thank you, Allison. I'm going to have to cut in here. We're at time. I'm so sorry.
Okay. I could just keep going, but
okay.
Thank you.
You gave us a good taste of it. Thank you so much. Okay, so next up, we're going to welcome back Gary Krieger for his 3 minutes.
Right. So picking up where Allison left off, there actually is very little daylight between the three of us. We have very common vision for what we'd like to do and what we see as the challenges to overcome. With the Fort Ord land, as Allison was going to get to, there are challenges out there that we're going to have to address, that we're going to have to work through. But I would say the biggest challenge, and Kim alluded to this earlier, right now is we need more visibility into what has been going on as far as the planning. So one of the big things we want to do is open that process up, make it more inclusive, get more input from the residents, bring in some more. It's been, the impression we get is it's been very traditional. We'd like to bring in other people. We'd like to get something that's not only sustainable and green, that's socially just. And to do that, you're going to need to think out the box and be a little creative. It's not the normal development mindset. So we're excited about the opportunity to maybe bring that into being. We definitely see medium high density mixed use development out there. You know, we need businesses, people can live there and be able to walk, and somehow we need to tie that into the existing city. So it is going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge to do all of that. I would just jump down really quick to the NPUSD bond measure for building the teachers' housing. And I will tell you that I had said no based off of a rigorous scientific study, and I had a sample size of 2, my daughter and her partner, who were both brand new teachers, and both spoke really passionately about they would dearly love to have help with buying a place, getting a place to live in Monterey, somewhere on the coast. They were not very supportive of the idea of building housing where it's just a lot of teachers living. So the reason I said no is I would just like to hesitate on that and learn more about it. My first thought when I heard it was like, great idea, but the 2 of them were pretty passionate and convinced me that maybe that's not the way to go. So I just said no because I'd like to know a little bit more about that and look at other possibilities. We definitely have to help our teacher. I'm a teacher now, but I got a Navy retirement. My wife's a teacher. It's these new kids that we need to be worried about, and we do lose a lot of great teachers. I know that. I'm worried I'm going to lose my daughter and her partner. They can't find something around here. That would be really a loss. Okay. Prop 15. I will just say that the inequities of the business and residential treatment, the commercial and residential, has bothered me for a long time. I was really happy to see that's finally being addressed. I did hesitate because I know we're in the middle of a big downturn, but you know what? It is time. We just got to do it. It's the right thing to do, and there's never going to be a perfect time. We need to go ahead and take care of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Gary. Really appreciate that. And next up, we're going to go back to Kim Shirley. Kim, you've got 3 minutes.
Hi, thank you. So I said yes on everything. So I'm just gonna go through each one individually. And again, talking about Fort Ord, this is a big development for Delray Oaks. It's huge. We are intersected by Canyon Del Rey, General Jim Boulevard. And so I fear that we we have the ability to segregate affordable housing in a way that isn't really well integrated into our city. And so if we're not thinking about this ahead of time, and so, and to do this, I really feel like we need to have public buy-in. And so I want to do some outreach to our residents so they understand the importance of affordable housing, how it could be integrated within our city, again, looking at infill, and also incorporating that into our plans at Fort Ord. And of course, we're going to need water to do that. And so I'm really excited. Hopefully we can move forward with Pure Water Monterey. And excuse me, we also have a couple wells in our city too. And so I have a question about that and how, if that could allow us any flexibility, certainly in our housing that we do, or you know, any kind of building that we do within our city. So I have questions about that. Certainly no in lieu fees. I really feel like all of our development needs to have inclusionary housing, and we need to make sure that we have at least 20%. I want to make sure we can maximize that. And as far as our local ADU ordinance, I do feel like we need to expand that beyond what the state is going to require, because we need to give an opportunity for residents. We do have some residents that have fairly large properties, and so this could be a potential revenue source for them. This is, again, could be a very efficient way of taking care of some of our affordable housing. And so we need to, really what we need to do is also educate our residents on what this means, because this is something very new to them and new to our city. So we need to make sure that we go about that correctly. I'm certainly all about MPUSD housing. I feel like I'm a teacher, I teach at MPC. We need to support our teachers. It's really, this is an expensive place to live. I know CSUMB does a great job with their housing for their faculty. And so I think if we have something for MPUSD teachers, I think that that would really benefit them, and it would enhance their livelihood, which I'm all for. I think certainly local eviction moratorium, we need to really protect our residents, protect our renters as much as we can. And then as far as Prop 15, I think when you bring in money to schools, I think everyone benefits. So I am a huge supporter of Prop 15. I really feel like those larger businesses, it's time for them to pay their equal share. And so I think the time is now. We need to jump on it, because we need to help our schools. We need to help our governments as well. So thank you so much for having me tonight. This was a wonderful opportunity to talk about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. And I just want to extend a big thank you to all of our Delray Oaks candidates. And I'm going to hand it back over to Emily for our next city.
Great. Thanks so much, Katie. And thanks again to our Delray Oaks candidates. And good luck with the rest of your campaigns. So without further ado, we're going to move to the city of Marina. And we have one candidate here tonight from the city of Marina, and that is Gail Morton. So she is a candidate for City Council District 3. And Gail, I will give you the floor. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. So I am running for re-election in District 3. And the problem in Marina, we clearly have the ability to build housing. We can accommodate our entitled and already approved plans, allow an addition of 6,000 homes almost. And we're building new homes at the rate of 137 per year. Here's the difficulty. 5 of those are off the former Fort Ord. That means the other 132 are within the footprint of the former Fort Ord and are selling at prices that far exceed anybody that works in Marina, works on the peninsula, the ability to pay for them. If you're earning $2,800 a month, which is our median income, you're not buying a home for $1 million. We need to change our focus. We need to increase our affordable housing. We need to figure out and make sure that we follow through on our specific plans that we're right now working forward with the downtown vitalization, which plans for higher density, smaller units, multifamily, less auto-centric. The SDUs that came forward by the state of California in a state law, we just adopted that into our local ordinance on Tuesday. our local municipal code. And so what that allows is a junior unit and an SDU, one per lot on our households. So that also will help with our inventory. How to motivate developers, lots of ideas. I'm not going to read what's on my slide, and I know MBEP is well versed in that. In Marina also, what our problem is currently 22.8% of our students at MPUSD public schools in Marina are considered homeless. And what we're trying to do is make sure we're addressing not only who are homeless, but those that could be homeless. And COVID-19 has really exacerbated that problem. We own Preston Park and Abrams Park, and we provide as a city, how we manage that property is critical. So we take 1.75 million a year of its revenues, its profits into our general fund for us to live on, pay for police, fire, whatever we need. But we backfill and make sure that we're managing those properties to allow and subsidize the low income and the very low income housing that's so needed in Marina. Our covenants, we've recorded our covenants. We made the mistake of doing in lieu fees 2 decades ago, and well, the first decade of this with Sea Haven, they were relieved of all of their low and very low, and the city of Marina took that in our properties. So we have a lot to do, and I look forward to addressing Board Ord with everybody.
Wonderful, thank you. And I will just invite you to stay on screen since you're the only candidate, and we can take a look at the questions that we asked you together. So we asked, will you support increasing the inclusionary percentage? Do you support a city policy for prioritizing available water allocation for development of affordable housing? Would you support streamlining the process for the development of affordable low-income housing that meets state and county objectives by exempting them from the full public review process outlined in CEQA? We also asked, would you support the development of a local ordinance that provides even more flexibility than the state policy? We asked the same question about an MPUSD housing bond in the future. We asked if you would support the enactment of a local eviction moratorium that goes beyond the current state protections. And finally, we asked about Prop 15 and your position on that. So let's take a look at how you responded. So I see yes to everything and a couple of abstains. So perhaps you can talk about those a little bit more in depth and give us an idea of what conditions would have to be in place in order for you to support both water for affordable housing and exempting any developments from the CEQA review process.
Okay, so both of those are interrelated because any development in CEQA review, you need to show you have a sustainable long-term water supply. We are threatened to have not a sustainable long-term water supply, and the city of Marina is working very hard to protect the 180 and 400-foot aquifers. All of my colleagues from Delray Oaks are talking about what they want to do on former Fort Ord. Here's the problem. You have 2 policies that were adopted. 6,160 homes was the housing limitation. That was premised upon 6,600 acre feet of water. FORA has gone away, but there are agreements in place where those restrictions still apply. Those homes have all been allocated, and so there is no more affordable water. We've talked about this with MBEP and Mr. Huerta when he did his white paper and came to FORA, came to the city of Marina, is if you are treating each house on the former Fort Ord as having X quantity of water, which was the presumption when this plan was adopted and the limitation on housing, we need to think about if that was the quantity of water for a 4-bedroom house, we need to look at how can you use that quantity of water and have 4 separate homes or 2 separate homes to get those smaller, more affordable units. We need to look at that structure. MCWD owns all of the water and has the right to pump all of the water on former Fort Ord. 5,200 acre feet of that water has to come out of the 180 and 400-foot aquifer, which is why the city of Marina is fighting so hard to keep CalAm out of that aquifer to make sure there's water. That water is for Delray Oaks, Monterey County, Seaside, and Marina for all the development on that former Fort Ord. And so until we really, as a collective region, sit down and say, okay, what are we going to do? How can we restructure this? MCWD signed a contract or a legal settlement that says they're not going to pump water for more than 6,160 homes on the former Fort Ord. Until we can structure something that allows that water cannot be looked at as a housing unit that's unidentified, but each size home, each home that has one bathroom, one kitchen has a use of water, and we can re-look at that and perhaps collectively readdress that, we won't get enough affordable homes out at former Fort Ord. In Marina, we have RENA numbers of 1,806 new homes that we needed to put into our plans, which we have. Most of those are in central Marina. We're looking at all the higher densities. We're trying to figure out how we do mixed use, multifamily. The problem is City of Marina doesn't own that land. That's privately owned. And we have to create incentives for developers to come in and redevelop that land. But we could not do that out at the former Fort Ord because of the constraints. I think that AMBEG gave us that number of homes because they looked at all this land that we acquired. One of the key questions we now need to look at, we have some bare land at Preston Park, Abrams Park, owned by our city. Couldn't we put SDUs, secondary dwelling units on there? Can we infill in that location? And that housing cap and water cap may very well prohibit us. Big problems. I look forward to working with MBEP in a regional approach to solve this. Thank you for your leadership.
Thanks so much.
I hope I'm reelected. I was supposed to tell you to vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'm glad we, got into some of those nuances of Fort Ord and water. This is a really great conversation, and we hope to continue it and be a part of the discussion. So thank you so much, and best of luck to you. All right, so now I'll welcome Katie back onto the screen, and she's going to take us through our mayoral candidates for the city of Seaside.
Okay, so moving to our largest group and the last of the evening, as Emily said, best for last. We have 3 candidates for mayor, and so first up we have Mayor Ian Oglesby, and I'd like to welcome him and give him his 2 minutes. You're on, Mayor.
Okay, guys, can you hear me guys now? Okay, hello, Katie. Thank you guys for hosting this forum on such an important issue. I just want to start off by going through the slides a little bit. We have a commission on just about everything in the city, but we don't have a commission for housing. So I would like to just add a commission for that. As a founding member of the Monterey Peninsula Housing Coalition, I supported the increase of inclusionary housing percentages, boundary density provisions as a top priority. And over the 18 months that I've been the mayor, we have implemented several of the policy changes contained within the Impact Housing White Paper, creating additional opportunities for building more housing affordability choices for all income levels, especially low income and workforce housing units. We have cut red tape, reduced expenses, waived parking requirements, and prioritized water for ADUs. We paid for architectural ADU designs and created an ADU guidebook, which when used will reduce the cost of ADUs. The city is also in the process of building 2 demonstrative ADUs on city-owned vacant land, which is infill. We have hired a housing program manager for the first time in over 3 decades, whose sole job it will be to create opportunities for construction of affordable housing. We purchased our first single-family home in the last 20 years, ensuring that it stays affordable. We still have some boxes to check on the white paper, but I'm committed to checking them off over the next 2 years if I'm lucky to be re-elected. The city should partner with other low-income housing providers or go it alone to build housing for individuals making less than $75,000 a year, of a family of 2 or more, $150,000. We can build smaller and we can build smarter. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And so next up, we have Joseph Smith, and he will share his agenda. Thank you.
Hi,
You have 2
thanks,
minutes.
everybody. 2 minutes.
Welcome.
All right. I'm Joseph Smith, and I am running for Seaside Mayor, as you may well know. So as you can see my slide right here, made a little bit of a joke, if you will. Seaside will move into the 21st century, playing on words. Now, I didn't just make some talking points about specifically what I'm going to do, what we can do. We're all saying the same thing. We all have the similar goals. The things that I'm more focused on is what we can do to make our city and our residents more available to be able to afford these homes that everyone's talking about affording. You can do great, wonderful things. You can build all the homes that if people can't pay for them, no one's going to live in them. So what I'm trying to do is I want to make some incentives available in Seaside to attract bigger companies, big organizations that are going to pay higher living wages. I do want to open up affordable housing development in Fort Ord and beyond. I know that there's water issues, all of that. I do agree with the $75,000 limit and then $150,000 for a, for instance, like a married family or 2 people living, yeah, that both work. Economic recovery and safely opening our schools and work, basically to get everyone back to work. You know, many people are staying at home doing the distance learning with their kids. It's near impossible to have both people back working again. And it's just not feasible. So we want to do that responsibly and safely. Another thing I want to do is embrace the cannabis industry. Obviously, Seaside's been one of the front runners for embracing the cannabis industry. But what I'm more interested in is incorporating the hospitality that this area is known for. I mean, the Monterey Peninsula, but Seaside doesn't really have that. So the cannabis industry is going to bring in more jobs, more tourism, more money for everyone in general. Another thing is helping the homeless community, just basically helping everyone's property values increase and stay what it is, stay feasible, and finish the fiber optic. That's something that has to be done in our city, and that would benefit everyone involved. Again, I'm Joseph Smith. I hope to have your vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joseph. And then our final mayoral candidate tonight with us is John Wizard. I'd like to introduce John Wizard. You've got 2 minutes.
Thanks very much, Katie. It's great to be here this evening to share with everybody. There's so much that we have to do in the city of Seaside, and we've made some progress, but there's still a long way to go. Primarily, we assessed back in 2018 that we could build something like 1,000 ADUs in Seaside if we maximize the amount of lots that we had deemed eligible, just with the proximity to transit stops. And I think so far we've got something like 10. So I was happy to lead the effort on sequestering 5 acre-feet of water for ADU construction. I'm also very excited to have been working so closely with staff to obtain $1 million of state grant to build 10 ADUs in the city of Seaside that will go to low-income homeowners, help stabilize their finances, as well as provide greater housing opportunities in our community. For the Ascent project that'll be on Broadway, it was going to be 115 units, but I, through my professional and technical expertise in affordable housing, my day job, I work for Habitat for Humanity, which is an affordable housing developer. I realized that they'd made a miscalculation, and we actually were able to squeeze one more affordable home out of the equation. So that's one more apartment reserved for a family with fewer resources that will be deed restricted for 55 years, providing a safe and stable home for generations. So I was really, very proud of that, of making sure we didn't lose that affordable home. On my slide, you see a lot about missing middle and triplexes and fourplexes and duplexes. And really, that's critical that we change our zoning map, or we do an affordable housing overlay, because we have so many homes and households that are on the brink of homelessness. And with the pandemic and the shrinking of our workforce, we are desperately close to creating a wave, a tsunami of homelessness and evictions, and we can't allow that to stand. So my 2 minutes is up, and I'll follow up later. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, John. We really appreciate it. So now we're going to move on to our city council candidates for the city of Seaside. So this is quite a large group, and we're excited to have you all here. So let's see who's first on our list here. Great. So we have Dr. Ayman Adib, and you have 2 minutes. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thanks for this great event, actually. I'm very proud of my work with affordable housing. And instead of me waiting for the government solution, I had made the issue priority personally with my own funds and efforts. I would love for all of you to come to see my project at 301 Grand Avenue, which you guys helped me a lot there with Mr. Matt Huerta. We fought the city together and we won. I built in my own land with my own funds, 3 affordable housing, and I fought with the city for over 7 months. So I will do this the same at Seaside. And as a city councilman, I will expand these efforts and using the state and federal funds to make sure our essential workers have quality, affordable housing. Thank you. I'm done. I already did it myself and I don't need to talk too much. I did it. I have 6 permits, ADUs in city of Seaside. I'm building in my own houses to give affordable housing to people. In the same time, in city of Marina, I have 3 permits. I have all the experience with the building departments, with the planning department. I suffered a lot and I will fix that when I get elected. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And we'll circle back to you when we look at the questions. So stick around. We'd now like to welcome Tanisha Dunn to share her housing agenda.
Am I there?
Yep, we've got you.
Okay. Good evening. My name's Tanisha Dunn. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a resident here in Seaside and I'm running for Seaside City Council. I attended public school here, college here, started my career here, and currently work here in this county. I've been blessed with a beautiful, supportive family who also remains right here in the city. But many of my close friends can't afford to live here in Seaside or Monterey County. There's a long repeated pattern for millennials with limited choices we are left with. I'm aware that many Seaside residents leave to attend universities, but once they graduate, they're offered high leverage and well-paying jobs in areas in which they attended school. They're also offered affordable housing opportunities for the working class and students. My peers love Seaside just as much as I do, and they're just not able to return home to offer their talents to our community due to the lack of new and innovative job opportunities and housing availability. A few things that I intend to focus on are educating low-income and minority households on home ownership, because a lot of us don't even know where to start, majority. But by providing working class renters, students, and families with opportunity and financing to purchase their units. Also by protecting our seniors and long-term residents from property tax increases. Accessory dwelling units, also known as ADUs, we can allow seniors to stay home versus going to assisted living facilities and keeping families together. I do home care as well. I think that's the biggest part for seniors is being able to stay home and comfortable and even still live with their kids, and they can be in the ADU in the back of the house. ADUs increases property value because it adds equity to your home and its revenue source that can impact the sale. They also create privacy and independence for adult children living at home by having their own bedroom, bathroom, and kitchen space. Another important inclusion are inclusionary units, which requires developers to set aside 10 to 30% of its new units to low-income renters at lower than market rate. Mr. Glover's Parker Flats Apartments will provide 8 low-income units, and Campus Town will have 300 inclusionary units. Thank you. Let's get it done.
Thank you, Tanisha. We really appreciate you being here. And now we'd like to invite Alexis onto the stage.
Hi, Amy. Thank you. Good evening.
The virtual stage, I should say.
No worries. Can you hear me all right?
Yep, we've got you.
Perfect. Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for offering this opportunity for me to share my vision for Seaside. Homeownership, once the California dream, is now an illusion, and nearly 70% of Californians see the majority of their paychecks go immediately to escalating rents. And I think when we first started this campaign, that was a priority, right? How are we going to make sure that our residents are taken care of? And the problem here is not just housing, it's income inequality and wage stagnation in California that also hinder low and moderate income households' ability to pay for home or rent. That's why I'm prioritizing affordable housing in Seaside as my #1 priority. Rental costs across the state are some of the highest in the country, while listed housing prices dipped dramatically in the 2008 financial crisis. Rents in California remained stable before soaring in the next few years. So as rents skyrocket and wages remain stagnant, Seaside must find viable solutions to ensure residents do not pay more than 30% of their income on rent. Many families in Seaside fall under the McKinney-Vento definition of homelessness, often living in substandard living conditions or multiple families in one single household due to low wages and the lack of housing stock. While the vast majority of states saw a dip in their homeless population, California saw an increase. And a staple of my campaign has always been to prioritize the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions and prioritizing green housing. Gas used in residential and commercial buildings are responsible for 25% of the state's greenhouse gas emissions. And to me, that's horrible. And we need to help the state meet their goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. That makes electrification an important strategy in meeting California's climate goals. This can all go out of spiral, right, if we don't tackle it, which is leading to increase in racial segregation. So the shift to electrification should not exacerbate the already widening gap between the supply and demand for affordable housing. Affordable housing owners cannot be expected to prioritize electrifying their buildings if they do not have enough cash reserves or operating income. So the city must prioritize ways in which we can help our communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alexis. We really appreciate it, and we'll get back to you in a moment. Last but not least, we'd like to welcome Regina Mason to share her housing agenda.
Oh, great. Thank you for having us here on this evening. My slide reflects what Seaside was supposed to look like in terms of the downtown area 40 years ago. Homeownership is one way in which we can realize the American dream intergenerationally. And so for someone that has lived here in Seaside all of my life, I have seen the out-migration of many of my peers that I grew up with, and I also have seen a lot of gentrification. I have a motto that says, "Nothing about us without us." And that means that there are people that come into our community and they want to dictate what is going to happen for people. And the people that really have helped to build this community have been left behind. So I would like to bring back to the table the people of the community so that their voices can be heard. So inclusion would create vibrancy, and it will allow the voice of the voiceless to be heard again. And I would like to really focus in on not only rentals, but home ownership. Home ownership is so important. I am a lifelong resident, as I mentioned, and having families have to have their children come back from college, especially because of the pandemic, to live with them because they cannot find housing is not okay. So basically, I will get more into my housing plan a little later, but I really am interested in inclusion and having the voice of the voiceless, especially the low-income residents of our community members heard. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Regina, and to all of our Seaside City Council candidates, especially for being so prompt with your presentations. So we will now look at the questions that we posed both to the mayoral candidates and the City Council candidates. Katie, would you like to lead us through the questions?
Sure. Would you be in favor of changing the main gate developments into a mixed-use, mixed-income housing project similar to Campus Town? When new water supplies become available, would you support prioritizing it for development of affordable housing? Would you support the elimination of in-lieu fees to ensure the inclusionary units are built? And would you support the development of a local ordinance that provides even more flexibility than what the state policy currently mandates, such as allowing 2 ADUs on one property? Would you be in support of MPUSD pursuing a similar measure on the ballot in the future? Would you support the enactment of a local eviction moratorium that goes beyond current state protections and restricts rent increases during the declared state of emergency? And finally, do you support Proposition 15, known as Schools and Communities First?
Great.
And so now we get to see the responses, right?
Yeah, so a lot of the same questions. And the one that's slightly different is in regards to Main Gate, which is currently zoned commercially, and we are asking if they would potentially like to change that to a mixed use, mixed income housing project, similar to Campus Town, which many of you are familiar with. So yes, let's take a look at how they responded. Okay, so this is the Seaside mayoral candidates. And
again, a lot of alignment, huh?
Right, yeah, a lot of alignment.
We're all more of a common opinion than not.
I see only one non-yes answer, and that's an abstention in regards to the local eviction moratorium. So perhaps Mayor Oglesby can elaborate a little bit on that. But otherwise, should we turn it back over to them and see if they have anything to say on these issues?
Sure. And then I'm interested in hearing a little more about Main Gate, where that would be and so forth. So anybody that has knowledge of that, I think it would be informative for all of us. So next up, they each have 3 minutes, correct?
That's correct.
All right. So we'll start with Ian Oglesby next.
Okay, thank you. Let me just go back a second. I thought I heard Councilman Wizard say we had the ability to have 1,000 ADUs in the city of Seaside. I have not heard that number ever anywhere in any public document or any public session. So that's very concerning to me that he would say that, because I haven't heard that, and I don't think the council ever heard that number before anywhere. When we talk about the Main Gate, yes, I'm in support of rezoning it. I think you guys all know that the last proposal we received for the Main Gate had mixed use, had student housing, single family homes, and a couple hotels possibly, and dining and shopping. But I'm in support of rezoning. Prioritization of water, we have already prioritized our water for ADUs, moving the priority from economic development to ADUs and by extension, affordable housing. In lieu fees, I agree with that 100%. I think the houses have to be built. We don't need money for housing later. We need affordable housing now. ADUs, I just went over the ADUs. We got a local ordinance. We're going to construct 2 ADU demonstrator projects. We have ADU architectural designs. We cut red tape. We prioritize the water. We reduce the fees, all making it easier for people to build their ADUs. Public endorsement, I was a public endorser of MS Monterey Peninsula Unified School District bond, and we'll support one in the future. As we talk about the local eviction, I have to make, as mayor, I have to make sure that anything that we sign on to, that we can protect the city's interests. And so if we have the ability to sign on and delay those evictions and not put the city at risk, our general fund at risk, then I'm all for that. I know between, September and January 21st, January 31st, 2021, those renters are going to have to pay 20% of the rent due. I'm supportive of having a fund that assists them in paying that rent. I have on the council's agenda, our next Thursday agenda meeting, a rental assistance fund just for that. But that would depend on how many renters out there would need at least 20% assistance with their rent between September 2020 and January 31st, 2021. So that's something we have to look at. And then yes, on Prop 15, it's not a good time to raise taxes on anyone, but we do need that money within the state of California, particularly the schools, ergo leads it to the community. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Oglesby. And so next up, we have Joseph Smith. You've got 3 minutes to elaborate on your responses here.
Excellent, thank you. So yeah, I think a lot of people are genuinely surprised that I'm a conservative and I support a lot of these projects that, you know, my Democratic constituent, or I'm sorry, partners that are running, they also agree with it. Basically, we're all trying to support our city. We're all trying to support our community. So of course, changing main gate that we could allow to have more ADUs, we could have more inclusionary housing, we could have more jobs being created. I think it makes sense to do something like that. It absolutely makes sense to consider it. And if the plan makes sense to move forward, then absolutely, I support that. Affordable housing. Again, it's kind of been the hot button of the issue. I think everybody is kind of under the same notion that we need more affordable housing. Probably the majority of us on this forum don't own homes. I make decent money. I'm an IT director. I don't own a home here. I think that's appalling. People that live all over the world laugh at how much we pay rent, and it's like, why don't we move? Because we're not going to move, because we want to stay in our community and make things better. As far as in lieu fees, yes, I support that as well. Again, getting around red tape, cutting through some of the things that are holding back, or allowing people just to pay the fees to say, oh, no, we're going to build normal housing, and basically leaving everyone behind. So no, I definitely support that. Local ordinance for the ADU, again, same thing. I support all of it. The only thing that was even a question was Prop 15, but at the end of the day, if we're not supporting our teachers, we're not supporting those staff, of course we're going to run into issues as far as not having the best and the brightest teaching our youth. Again, I've been asked a lot of questions, and I have some pretty unique ideas. I have some unique stances. At the end of the day, it's going to benefit our city and everyone that's living in our city. And no longer we're going to have to drive all over the peninsula. We can live and work in the same city that we love. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joseph. And so our final mayoral candidate is John Wizard, and we're going to ask you to come back to the stage, John, for your 3 minutes.
Thanks again, Katie. There's such great questions, and just very quickly to answer your question about Main Gate, it was approved back in the day as a straight commercial development. It was supposed to be a lifestyle mall, and of course, retail is not as thriving an industry as it once was. And so we're working on finding some environmental review amendments in order to support putting housing out there. That's sort of the long and the short of it. And of course, I would support that. The water for the affordable housing is of course critical, because we can't expect that someone who is building or developing is just going to, out of the kindness of their own heart, just as a generous act, want to support affordable housing. So we need to prioritize that. When you heard it earlier, we need to incentivize the creation of affordable housing. And one way you do that is by creating enough water to support it. The in lieu fees, in a bigger locale, the county of Monterey or the state of California, it may make sense to split a development and put sort of like East Garrison, there's not a lot of services out there. I'm not even sure how frequently the bus goes. So to put affordable housing out there means that you're requiring people with less money to own a car and pay insurance and gas. So it's oftentimes better to move that affordable housing somewhere closer to services, or pay into an affordable housing fund, sort of like the housing trust fund that the county stood up. In the city of Seaside, or really any of the cities locally, our cities are so small, it doesn't make sense to split those things. And we should definitely eliminate the in lieu fee and require the actual construction of those affordable homes. As far as local ADU ordinance, the more than 1,000 ADUs I referenced was in my research with our former city planner, our senior planner, Mr. Rick Medina. As a candidate in 2018, I went around the city, talked to as many city staff as I could, went out to the Florida Reese Authority, went to the Water Management District, and I did my homework. And one of the things that came up in conversation was just because of the way the state law was written, we could have ADUs everywhere in Seaside. We have 10,000 housing units, and more than 6,000 of them are single family homes. And almost 100% of them, except for one small corner near Delray Oaks, up by General Jim Moore, are within a half mile of a transit stop and are by right allowed to have ADUs. So that we haven't maximized ADUs in Seaside is really, it demonstrates that we have so far to go on this front, and it really needs to become a priority of the City Council and not just a footnote in all of the things that we're trying to do. The MPUSD housing bond, I'm glad that so many of the local mayors endorsed that, because as a staffer at Habitat for Humanity, I was part of the team that developed the scope of that plan. So to hear that hopefully my future colleagues were so appreciative of that plan means that I'm on the right track, and that the way that I am thinking is congruent, is working with the rest of the community. I also helped my city attorney write the local eviction moratorium, and I'm very proud to claim that space as someone who wants to look out for renters and make sure that we don't increase homelessness. And of course, I support Prop 15 as the person who brought the resolution to the City Council. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate all three of you elaborating on your responses to our questionnaire. I think next up, we're going to move on to our council candidates. And
we'll see how they responded here. Does anything jump out at you, Katie?
Well, again, we have quite a bit of alignment on the first set of questions, a little bit of a mixed bag on the MPUSD housing bond. Dr. Adib has abstained, and then we have a couple yeses and a no. So that might be interesting to dig into a little bit. And then of course, one no on the eviction moratorium, and then we're split down the middle on Prop 15. So I think the subsequent 3 minutes, I'm looking forward to hearing our candidates talk about their differences and priorities related to their housing agenda.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we'll hand it back over in the same order that we went in last time. So without further ado, Dr. Adib, you have 3 minutes to elaborate on any of your responses. And we're particularly interested in what you have to say about the questions in which you have a difference of opinion from your peers. So it's all yours.
Sure. I just want to adjust the answer about MBUSD. I would say yes on that. And after I did my research, I think I will agree with that very well. Yes, about the first question about the rezoning, I have no problem with this. That's actually a very smart idea. Water for affordable housing. There is restrictions in the whole peninsula. If you don't have water, you're never going to build. It's like they give us the permission to build with no water. So we need to increase that. And as you know, we can build a lot of affordable housing. We have a lot of garages here. I personally turned 6 garages to be 1-bedroom house with the very nice, very, very nice idea. But without water, we're not going to be able to build anything. So I really support that. Yes, question number 3, local EDU ordinance. I agree with that. Proposition 15, I'm looking at the other side. Everybody's looking at, we're going to support the school. But who's going to pay for that? So commercial, I rent a space here in downtown Monterey. I pay rent, and there's something called triple net. So we're thinking we're taking money from the big companies. No, you're taking money from my small business, because I'm going to be the one paying the triple net. They count the lease, for example. I pay, for example, $4,000 plus triple net. If this taxes goes high, I will pay the higher tax. I'm not going to be able to help my customers. If I have a small grocery store or a dollar store or a thrift store, how can I do that? I have somebody rent for me their hair salon. If I ask them to pay the triple net, for example, and increase the triple net, they're not going to be able to afford. So let's look at both pictures. Small business will get hurt more than they are in very hard time now. So now we are adding more taxes to them. For whose benefit? We can support the school and communities. Yes, beautiful. But let's find another way away from small businesses. So what I see now, the city or the state wants to help small business, and at the same time you're increasing the taxes. It does not make sense to me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, and best of luck to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, great. And we will turn it back over to Tanisha Dunn. Tanisha, you have 3 minutes to elaborate on any of your responses.
Okay. The reason it would be a good idea for Main Gate to mirror Campus Town's mixed use development is because Campus Town is an amazing project. I'm sure you all will agree. The project proposes over 1,400 housing units, of course, 250 hotel rooms, youth hostel beds, retail dining, entertainment. I think that's awesome, and it's what Seaside needs. I would absolutely prioritize water for affordable housing. I would prioritize anything we need for affordable housing. It's like the top issue of Seaside. If your property has enough space for 2 ADUs, why not? I say yes for that. I support eliminating in lieu of fees, because these fees are sometimes seen as loopholes that allows the developers to avoid building affordable units on site. Yes, on Prop 15, of course. The slogan, schools and community first, it speaks for itself. I don't think that we should go any further. Schools and community first. When elected to council, I will also commit to engaging the community on future growth plans, specifically involving the youth. If we engage our young people in city business and welfare early, we will also increase the likeliness to return home and contribute. I know all of you who are residents of Seaside loves the city just as much as I do. As I said earlier, I know you all truly believe in the potential of Seaside and are willing to do the work to maintain our city's legacy. Therefore, I humbly ask you to vote Tanisha Dunn for Seaside City Council to achieve our city goals together. I do represent us. Thank you. Let's get it done.
Thanks so much, Tanisha. We appreciate it, and best of luck. Alexis, the floor is yours once again to provide any remarks you would like to about your responses and to close out.
Perfect. Most definitely when it comes to changing Main Gate to mixed use development, I would support it because one, it stirs up revitalization. It reduces auto dependency, roadway congestion, and air pollution, hence helping Seaside reduce greenhouse gas emissions like it's my priority. It also encourages economic investment and embodies smart growth. When we're talking about water supply, of course, we can't afford not to. Many low-income residents in Seaside that are economically disadvantaged are experiencing an uptick in infrastructure that makes them vulnerable to displacement as property values increase and rent rises. So therefore, I would definitely prioritize water for affordable housing. In lieu fees, I would not support the usage of in lieu fees on larger projects because it leads to inequity in housing when people choose not to build affordable housing, and then the entire neighborhood then is at market rate. But I would be in support of in lieu fees on smaller projects, as the project would be infeasible if they had to meet the inclusionary housing requirements. ADUs are an affordable type of homes that are built in California because they do not require you to pay rent or land, but, and ADUs also provide a source of income for homeowners. Therefore, I would support the development of local ordinances that provide more flexibility. When it comes to housing bond for teachers, the MPUSD housing bond, the housing crisis is huge. As a teacher shortage is in California, our children deserve quality education, and when we invest in education, we invest in strong and safer communities for all. Therefore, I'm supportive of the bond. What I really want to touch on Prop 15 is that many people ask, where is this money going to come from? But it would actually increase property taxes on commercial properties worth more than $3 million, providing $6.5 billion to $11.5 billion in new funding to local government and schools. And what we need to take a look at is it increases funding for K-12 public schools, community colleges, and local governments. It exempts from taxation changes residential properties, agricultural land, and owners of commercial and industrial properties with combined value of $3 million or less. Exempts small businesses from personal property tax for other businesses, and for other businesses, it provides $500,000 in exemptions. These billions could be used instead to deal with increasing inequality, persistent poverty, unemployment, unaffordable housing, homelessness, and underfunded schools. While the wealthiest corporations avoid paying their fair shares, our schools have the most crowded classrooms in the nation, and our local communities are struggling to respond to the impact of COVID-19. Prop 15 is a fair and balanced reform which closes property tax loopholes, cuts small business taxes, and reclaims billions of dollars to invest in our local schools and communities. So therefore, I support Prop 15 100%. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alexis, and best of luck to you. And last but not least, Regina, you have 3 minutes to touch on any of these questions and your responses and to close out.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, so let me go ahead and reflect on the no's. The MPUSD housing bond, I just got my property taxes, and I've supported bond after bond after bond. And in my senior years, and I'm retired as a social worker, and social workers probably make less than teachers, but I know that it's going to increase my property taxes. And so I think that when I looked at this question, what is in the future mean? Imposing new taxes during the time of economic hardships is not in the best interest of our community right now. And then when it comes to the eviction moratorium, I believe that the best solution for that is the challenge is to come up with a plan to protect renters, but also to not harm the property owner, because if the property owner loses their property, everybody loses. So I think that there are more which we can deal with eviction at this point in time. And then as far as my position on Proposition 15, I think that Proposition 15 is a very misleading. It lacks accountability, and it also basically is not supported by a number of minority organizations such as the California State Conference of the NAACP, the California Asian Pacific Chamber of Commerce, the California Hispanic Chambers, California Seniors Advocates, Small Family Business Association, and it would definitely hurt small businesses even though it says that that is exempted. I think that Proposition 15, like I said, is extremely misleading, and I think that we really have other priorities that we have to deal with in our community right now. And I don't want to see small businesses harmed either. And again, when I say it's misleading, it says, I heard a number of people on this evening talk about small businesses aren't going to be harmed, but actually, if you look at the fine print, they say the devil's in the details. But it also destroys our Prop 13 taxpayer protections. So I've seen my property taxes go up over and over again. And I'd also like to say that I am supported by the Latino Unidos of Seaside, the Monterey Peninsula Chamber of Commerce, and I urge people, if they want to see positive change from someone that has worked decades in this community, to provide affordability for all residents of Seaside, especially low-income residents, that Regina Mason is the person that will provide hope and opportunity for you. So thank you very much for allowing me this platform.
Wonderful, right on time. Thank you so much, Regina. And thank you to all our Seaside City Council candidates for being here this evening. Congratulations on your candidacy and best of luck in the rest of the election. So that wraps up our evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Katie, what did you think of everything?
Well, I'm just so impressed with really the talent and leadership and courage of everybody that was here with us tonight to really dig in and address these issues and put themselves forward as candidates. So I just personally want to thank you all and tell you how much I appreciate your leadership in our local community. On behalf of United Way Monterey County, of course, as a nonprofit, we do not endorse candidates, but we certainly look forward to working with whomever wins the offices, and in various ways. I know we all wear different hats in the community. I know that we will all be working together on this, very large issue. And I hope you all found it informative tonight, both about the issues and then some of the similarities and differences amongst our candidates. And I really appreciate the chance to engage with this. And I guess my final thought is really just to remind everybody to get out there and vote. We focused on local issues here today. I know there's a couple of additional state ballot initiatives, propositions that relate to housing and property values. So I encourage everybody to get informed and make a very intentional use of your vote. So Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes, our local communities really depend on it. These elections are so important in regards to housing, but all issues really. So please make a plan to vote. Know where your drop-off boxes are. And I believe my ballot arrived. So I believe ballots are beginning to arrive at all households right now. So keep an eye out and do your research and make sure you're familiar with all the candidates who you have the opportunity to vote for. And I would just like to echo what Katie said about being really appreciative of all these candidates spending their time here this evening, and also looking forward to working with many of you in the future to solve our region's housing issues. So thank you so much. And with that, we will conclude our final election forum of the season. Thank you so much for being here with us, Katie, and we will be seeing you shortly.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.